It was the sound of splintering wood that changed everything. The crash of my front door exploding inwards, the sharp click of designer heels on broken glass, and the scream of a woman who was about to live stream her own spectacular downfall. There I was, Marcus Henley, a 52-year-old retired electrician, sitting in my grandfather's fishing cabin, having a beer with the state attorney general. And in storms, Delilah Cromwell, the HOA president, committing at least 6 felonies, in front of the one person in America who could ensure she'd never see the outside of a prison cell again. This is the story of how a power-drunk neighborhood dictator picked a fight with the wrong guy and accidentally burned her own multi-million-dollar criminal empire to the ground. It all started 6 months earlier, when life was pretty damn good. After 30 years of crawling through muddy trenches and installing power grids across 3 counties, I'd finally earned my retirement. The crown jewel of it all was my grandfather's fishing cabin on Clearwater Lake. 2 acres of pure heaven that old Pop bought back in 1963 for $800. This wasn't some fancy McMansion. We're talking hand-hewn logs, a stone fireplace Pop built with his own calloused hands, and a screened porch that creaked in all the right places. I'd kept it completely off-grid by choice. Solar panels, humming on the roof, well water that tasted like childhood memories, a septic system that worked better than most city setups. The morning mist rising off the lake was my daily reminder of why Pop chose this spot. He used to say, "The land picks you, not the other way around." He was a smart man. He also used to say, "Marcus, when someone wants your land real bad, find out why, because it's usually worth more than they're telling you." Then she showed up. Delilah Cromwell. Everyone just called her the HOA psycho. She rolled into our peaceful lake community like a tornado in designer clothing. 58 years old, fresh from some California subdivision where being a neighborhood dictator was a full-time career. She drove a pearl-white Escalade with vanity plates that read, "Rule 1. I kid you not." And she wore her HOA president badge on her blazer like it was a sheriff's star. Her mission? To transform our rustic lakefront into what she called an upscale resort community. What I didn't know then was that 3 elderly couples had already sold their cabins to mysterious, interested buyers within 2 months of her arrival. Funny coincidence, right? Her first act of war came on a Tuesday morning. I'm sitting on Pop's porch, drinking coffee, watching a pair of loons teach their babies to dive, when I hear this sharp clicking sound on my wooden dock, designer heels, at 7 in the morning, on my private property. 10 minutes later, she's taping an official-looking notice to my screen door. Violation citation. Unsightly dock structure damaging community property values. Fine, $500. Compliance required within 72 hours or daily penalties will accrue. I had to read it twice. My weathered dock, the same one Pop and I reinforced together when I was 12, was suddenly an eyesore threatening the entire neighborhood's real estate market. Being a reasonable guy, I walked over to explain that my property actually predates the HOA by about 40 years. You know what she said to me, standing there in my own driveway, hands on her hips like she owned the place? "Everyone on this lake answers to me, sweetie. Ask the Hendersons how well fighting me worked out for them." The Hendersons, my elderly neighbors who'd mysteriously decided to downsize last month after 23 years. The pieces weren't clicking yet, but something cold settled in my stomach. That's when she started her photography session, circling my cabin like a real estate appraiser, snapping pictures of my solar panels, my vegetable garden, even my grandfather's hand-carved porch railings. The smell of chemical air freshener wafting from her idling Escalade made me want to gag. By the end of the week, I had 3 more citations, each one with escalating fines. Each one made it crystal clear that Delilah Cromwell had declared war on everything my family had built. I figured I was dealing with a typical power-tripping neighbor, annoying but manageable. What I didn't know was that I'd just painted a target on my back in a game much bigger and more dangerous than petty. HOA politics, Pop's words echoed in my head. Find out why they want your land. I was about to find out why, and it would change everything. Karen didn't waste time. 3 days after my compliance deadline passed, because seriously, I wasn't tearing down Pop's dock for some wannabe dictator, a certified letter arrived that made my coffee taste like ash. Cease and desist. Violation of community waterway regulations. The letterhead was from Blackstone, Meyer, and Associates, One of those fancy law firms where partners charge more per hour than I made in a month. The legal gibberish said my dock was illegally extending into the community waterway, and I owed $3,000 in retroactive violation fees. They threatened to slap a lien on my property if I didn't pay up within 10 days. My first instinct was panic. These people had lawyers. I had a toolbox and a bad attitude. But then I remembered something Pop always drummed into me during those long fishing afternoons. Marcus, when someone's trying to legal talk you out of your land, the real truth is always in the county records. Never trust what they tell you. Go find the actual papers. So I drove down to the county courthouse, that musty basement where all the important stuff gets buried under decades of bureaucratic dust. The clerk, a sweet lady named Betty, who remembered Pop from his fishing tournament days, helped me pull the original property surveys. What I found made my blood boil. My grandfather's lot didn't just go to the water's edge. It included 50 feet into the lake. The deed, stamped and official from 1963, was crystal clear. That dock wasn't trespassing on community property. It was sitting smack dab in the middle of my lake. But here's the real kicker. The HOA wasn't established until 1998, 35 years after Pop bought his land. I remembered my old foreman saying that older properties often have grandfathered rights that newer developments can't touch. Armed with copies of everything, I marched back to my cabin feeling pretty damn proud of myself. That satisfaction lasted exactly until I tried to leave for groceries and found Karen's Escalade parked sideways across my driveway. Not beside it, not near it. Directly blocking it, like she was conducting a one-woman traffic stop. I knocked on her window. She rolled it down just enough to speak through the gap. "Oh, Marcus, I'm just reviewing the community parking regulations. This might take a while." The mechanical hum of her idling engine mixed with that sickly sweet air freshener created a surreal bubble of passive-aggressive insanity. Here I was, a grown man who'd built half the county's electrical infrastructure, being held hostage in my own driveway by a suburban soccer mom with a power complex. But Karen was just getting warmed up. Within a week, she'd organized the Lakeside Beautification Committee, which sounds nice until you realize it was a hit squad targeting anyone who didn't fit her country club vision. Neighbors I'd waved at for years were crossing the street to avoid eye contact. Her Facebook posts were masterpieces of passive-aggressive warfare. Concerned about eyesore properties affecting all our home values? Some people just don't care about the community. Lakeside's strong TWAS property values. The comment section turned into a feeding frenzy. People were parroting Karen's talking points like she was some real estate prophet. 3 of my neighbors pulled me aside and confessed that Karen had strongly suggested they complain about my property or face their own citation blitz. She'd already targeted old Mr. Peterson for non-regulation window boxes and threatened a young couple over their unsightly playground equipment. "She's got something on everyone," my neighbor Tom whispered, glancing around like Karen might be hiding in the bushes with a camera. "Her husband works up at the state capitol. Connected. Political stuff." That hit me like a cold slap. This wasn't just neighborhood drama anymore. That night, I found orange spray paint covering my mailbox. Bright, aggressive strokes spelling out, "Comply or leave." My security camera, solar-powered and hidden behind a pine tree, caught everything, including Karen's license plate as she drove away at 2:30 in the morning. When I called the sheriff's office the next morning, guess who showed up? Deputy Chad Cromwell, Karen's nephew. He took one look at the vandalism report, shrugged and said, "Probably just kids. You know how they are." The rough texture of that spray paint under my fingers as I tried to scrub it off felt like sandpaper against my soul. Pop used to say, "Sometimes you need bigger guns for a bigger fight. Time to find some bigger guns." Karen's next move was diabolical. She weaponized the entire county bureaucracy against me. It started with a polite knock from Building Inspector Dale Morrison, a guy I'd actually worked with on projects over the years. The awkward look on his face said it all. "Marcus, I'm real sorry about this, but I got a complaint about unpermitted structures." 3 hours later, Dale had crawled through every inch of my cabin. His conclusion? Everything was not only up to code but exceeded current safety standards. "Whoever filed this complaint," he muttered, "either doesn't know what they're talking about or is trying to waste everyone's time." The next day, Environmental Officer Janet Bennett showed up, investigating reports of my septic system contaminating the lake. Again, perfectly functioning. Better the